are so many tasks in our businesses that we are doing over and over and over again that we actually don't need to be doing. A few years ago, I started setting up what's called automations in my business. And those are tasks that kind of happen without me having to do anything, or tasks that assign me a task to do something rather than me having to consciously think, oh, I need to go do that task. And so in this episode, I chat with Brianca Johnson all about automations that we can set up in our businesses. I think this is a really important discussion because especially if you're a solo business owner like myself, then having tasks that kind of happen without me having to do them is such a game changer for me, not having to burn out and me able to actually scale my business. And so we chat all about some really great automations you can implement, some mistakes you might be making, and give you some inspiration around this is actually a really great thing to spend your time doing, is setting up those automations so you can save time down the track. So if you don't know Brianca Johnson, she is a marketing operations and automations consultant and the author of It Ain't Rocket Science, Friend: How to Position Your Expertise, Build an Authentic Personal Brand, and Plan a Profitable Launch in 90 Days. Brianca specializes in helping executives, entrepreneurs, and CEOs build, launch, and grow sustainable marketing systems through simple online marketing strategies and advanced automations. Brianca has assisted her clients in generating over $500,000 in first-time launches and has coached over 600 women between 3 core programs since July 2020. So let's dive into this episode. I cannot wait to hear what you think. So welcome, Brianca, to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited for our conversation.
So we were chatting before the podcast, and so just for everyone's knowledge, it is 9:30 where I am in the morning and 7:30 in the evening. So if we have different kind of vibes, that's why we're working at opposite time zones. But it's a bit wild. Before we dive in, I would love to know, this is a question I ask all of my guests, and it's, what does an average day in your life and business look like? Like from when you're waking up to when you're going to bed. Like, I know you have kids or a kid, and like everything's probably a little bit different to a standard 9 to 5. So what does a day look like for you?
Yeah, so I wake up most days about 5 o'clock. I go to the gym.
You're one of those
Um,
people.
I
Congratulations.
wake
That's
up
really
before-
beautiful.
yeah, I really like it. I actually had to stop for 2 months. And then I just started back and I was like, oh, I really miss this. But I get up at 4:15, I go to the gym, I leave the gym, I come home, I get my kid ready for school. His dad takes him to school, and then I do a 90-minute sprint. So one of the things that I teach all of my clients is like working in 90-minute sprints. It's really changed the game for my business. So I do a 90-minute sprint in the morning. Typically that sprint is either like something operations or something marketing. I do another 90-minute sprint during my lunch break. So like right around 12, I do another 90-minute sprint. And then I go and I cook dinner at 4:30 from 4:30 to 5:30. At 5:30, I go get my kid. I bring him home, and then from 5:30 to 7:30, there's nothing. That's just his time. So we do dinner, we go outside if he wants to go outside, we do bath time, bedtime, the whole shebang. And then at 7:30, I do another 90-minute sprint from 7:30 until 9, and then I go to bed. Well, I typically will like read a book or watch TV, hang out with my husband,
Yeah.
etc. And I'm normally in bed by like 11.
Sorry. So you're going to bed at 11 and then waking up at 4:15. How are you having enough sleep? I would not be functioning.
So one of the things I've realized is that like if I don't get up at 4:15, I will sleep until I have to get my kid up to get ready for school. And I end up oversleeping. I get way too much sleep, and then I'm lethargic and I'm tired throughout
How
the day.
interesting.
But if I go to sleep at 11 and I wake up at 4:15, it's like just enough sleep. And I can always take a nap in the middle of the day if I need one, like a good 30-minute, 60-minute power nap, and I'm like good to go.
Yeah.
But that is better for me than having like 10 hours of sleep, because at that point I'm like no good for the rest of the day.
There you go. How interesting. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing your day. I love that little insight and the 90-minute sprint idea. I should probably try to do that, especially like with a 2-month-old. My main work period is evenings. So once everyone's in bed, it's from 7 or so. And if I did I pretty much do a 90-minute sprint, but like having that mentality in my head of like, I'm just going to work for 90 minutes and then I'm done, I think could be useful, because then I guess you're really making the most of that time when you do that.
Yeah, so I actually started it after I had my kid. So before I had him, I was like pretty much like an overworker. I would just work from the time my eyes open until they closed. But then when I had him, naturally I couldn't do that. And so I was very frustrated in the beginning. But I had to start thinking about like, if this is going to be my life, like if I'm going to have this kid for the rest of my life, I can't be frustrated for the rest of my life. I have to figure out how I'm going to like navigate it. And
Yeah.
I want more children. So I decided that 90-minute sprints would be my thing. So I have one for operations, one for marketing, and then one for client delivery. And doing them like in this way has just like really changed the game of my business. Like it's made it much more manageable. It's also given me parameters to know like what I can take on and what I can't take on, because I'm planning it out in a ClickUp dashboard. So I can see at a glance, like if someone's like, oh, can you deliver this in 2 days? I can see like in 2 days, I have these three things due. I only have 90 minutes, so I can't do that in 2 days, but I can do it in 3 days, or I could do it, in a week, et cetera. And so it's really made it manageable for me and my business.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Cool. I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind as a strategy to try for my own business. Amazing. Okay, so in this episode, I would love to really pick your brain around automation and the way that we can kind of use that really strategically in our business. It's something that I probably pushed into a little bit more the last year or two, and I even implemented a new one this week that I'm really excited about. And
Mhm.
I just love that we can be really strategic around how we use technology in our business. So I'd love to know, just for those that don't know anything about automation, how would you describe or define what automation is in a small business?
So automation is like anytime that you use like a technological tool. So if you think about like your Gmail app or Dubsado, which is a CRM, or ConvertKit, which is like an email marketing system, if you use those tools to complete a task without any manual activity, that is like an automation. So, and you can use automations for pretty much any and everything. One thing that I always recommend is like as you're thinking about what automations you want to implement in your business, to think about like what you want your customer journey to be and what you want your customer experience to be, and to think about like what will make your life as a business owner easier.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that that's the key there of what will make your life as a business owner easier. Because there's so many things that we can be doing that I guess we don't actually need to be manually doing. It's like a repetitive task, or it's a task that's just like, why would you sit and do that again when you, I think the hard thing is that it takes time to set up. And so
Yeah.
then we kind of think I don't have the time to set it up, yet we keep on doing the same task over and over again.
So it's like that time that you're spending to keep doing it over and over again. It's time that you could have just like done it one time and be done.
Yeah.
And I think, not to like harp on the 90-minute sprints things, but if you have a 90-minute sprint for operations, and in that 90-minute sprint, part of it is setting up automations, and that time is already baked into your calendar, and like that you have it, so you can set it up and move on.
Yeah, that's so true. So what are some automations? What are some really great examples of automations you use or your clients use that we could give some examples to the listeners?
Yeah, so very basic ones are like when you go to someone's website and you enter in your name and email, and then you receive a lead magnet, and then you receive email. So that's like a very basic one. But
Yeah.
even like my website, if you visit, there's a chat box. So that chat box has been loaded up with like various conversations from over the years and things like that. Obviously, like I'm leveraging AI, but it allows you to like have a conversation that I actually don't have to be privy to. I can step in at any point because I can see the conversation on my phone. But if you're having the conversation with AI and getting to where you need to go, then the automation did what it needed to do.
Mm,
Um, some other examples would be, have you ever DM someone on Instagram and then immediately you get a message that's like, thanks so much for messaging me. I can't wait to like reply, blah, blah. That's an example of an automation. Um, there are tools that you can use. Two of my favorites are Zapier and ManyChat. So Zapier is like a tool that you can use to make two tools that normally would not talk. You can make them talk to one another. So I just actually use Zapier for a client today. She wanted to import her inquiry client. So she has a form on her website that you complete if you're interested in working with her. But that form is hosted on her website. It's not hosted in her email marketing system. So let's say they complete that form, but then they don't onboard as a client. You don't want to lose that lead. You may want to nurture them over a time period. So we use Zapier to make her form and her email marketing system talk. So that way, once they complete that form, they would be entered into her email marketing system as a subscriber.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many great things that you can do. I love that. I just set up a new one yesterday where if someone even enters the checkout for my course and they leave the checkout and they don't purchase, my CRM puts a little tag on them. And when they get that tag, Zapier is like, oh, hey, um,
You
and I
forgot
send
to.
like yeah, and I send it creates a draft email in my Google Mail to then send a
Mhm.
personal follow up to them. So I could send like an automatic follow up, but I love doing the personal follow up. And so then once that draft email is in my Gmail, then it gives me a task in my Asana, and then I can go in and I can send the email. It's like that's just such a great way to do personal follow up, and I don't have to go in and check, oh, who's left the checkout or who's done this or who's. I could just get a little task. I'm like, oh, such and such has left the checkout. I'll follow them up in a couple of days, and it's just we can be so clever with it in our businesses and either save time or even be more proactive in our business rather than feeling overwhelmed that we can't do client follow-up or we can't set like talk to this person or that person. We can do so much more with our time when we use it really strategically. Hey.
Agree. And I think like what I really like about your approach is a lot of times when people think about automation, they think that it's like one size fits all and it has to be this very robotic, very cold, impersonal kind of situation. And it doesn't, number one, but it's also not supposed to be. It's
Mm,
supposed to make your job easier. It's supposed to make your clients feel that you have a more high touch, white glove customer experience. So if you're just copying and pasting from Chat GPT or, it doesn't sound like you or things like that, then of course, like you're going to be resistant to it. But if you are intentional about how you set it up and you're thinking about the language that you would use or how you would talk to your clients at each step in the journey, then automation could like really work well for you. We actually do something similar. So when we're in the middle of launching, let's say you click a link in our email that goes to like the landing page for Clarity to Coins. If you click the link in that email, but you don't check out within 72 hours, we send you an email and invite you to a call. And the email is pretty basic. It's just like, hey, Jacqui, like, this is Brie. I know that you were interested in Clarity to Coins. You checked out the sales page, but you didn't move forward. I wanted to reach out and personally invite you to have a conversation. I got some time available this week. Let me know when you're free.
yeah.
And it's like, this is happening automatically. But if you follow me on Instagram, like you could very well see that, like, that's how I talk. And so it doesn't feel like a robot. It feels like, dang, she's like stalking me on the internet, which is how I want it to feel.
Yeah, yeah, like you actually care about them. And like
Mhm.
from a consumer perspective, I think sometimes I get in my head around like, oh, I don't want to bother people or I don't want to get in their way. But it's kind of like at the same time, when I have been pursued kindly online of something that I'm already interested in particular, then it kind of feels like, oh, they actually want me. Like that's really nice. Like they care about, like they want to have a call or they're actually asking me if I have any questions. Like it's not just, yeah, this unintentional, uncaring kind of procedure where you're just another number. It's no, we actually
Exactly.
we set up the conversation with an automation, but it's because we care.
Exactly. And one thing that I like to always consider when I think about like setting up automations in my business is that I don't want to use it to replace me in the process. I want to use it to prompt me in the
Mm,
process when I need to step in, when I need to step in. And I think that's the part that like people kind of like don't think about or don't consider. It's not necessarily that you're like, oh, I set this automation up, it's hands off, my business is going to run and I'm not going to have to do anything. Like you're a business owner, you're going to have to work, but you don't have to carry the mental load in your brain of every single thing that has to be done in order for you to get the conversion or to get the client or to follow up. You can be prompted, you can be reminded, you can be, it can tell you what to do. And I really like that.
yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so if someone maybe hasn't set up any automations in their business before, or maybe they've got some basic ones, but they might even not realize it, what are some good first steps to kind of implementing things? I think I really like the one where like probably the first basic one a lot of business owners set up is that one you mentioned at the start of a lead
Like,
magnet. Yeah, and you pop in your email and you get sent a lead magnet. I think when you don't have a business, you might not realize that that all happens automatically. You don't have to like it's not Jacqui on the other end thing like, oh, someone signed up to my email list. I'll go send them this freebie. It's no, this all happens instantly, which is so much better for the consumer as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that there are basic automations that we all need. Like you need a welcome sequence, right? And that's not just them getting the lead magnet, but it's also your introduction of your brand to that client. So like, who are you? What's your mission? How can they work with you? What are some client success stories, et cetera? So like that welcome sequence could be sent out over the period of a week or 2 weeks, but it's like a number of emails that's kind of onboarding the client into your business for, in a sense, right?
Yeah,
So
into your
there's
world.
that, but there's also an abandoned cart email. So a lot of people don't have this in their business, especially service providers. And I just like, we, even as service providers, we need abandoned cart sequences. We need browse abandonment sequences because people are interested in working with us every single day. They're going to our application, but not completing it, or they're going to our sales page and looking at it, but not moving forward. And we like to think that it's because they just don't want it. But anything can happen. There have been so many times when I've been on a checkout page and then my kid starts screaming and I'm like, oh, let me go run and get him. And then by the time I get him calmed down and I come back to whatever it was I'm doing, I'm like, dang, I don't even remember what I was looking at or what it's completely left my brain. But if I was prompted or reminded that, like, hey, Brianca, you left this in a cart, then I'm going to go and I'm going to complete my purchase if it's something that I really want.
Yeah.
So having abandoned cart sequences are important, but having browse abandonment sequences, which means that like you're looking at the page and you're reviewing the content, you've been on that page for a while, or you come to that page a number of times. One thing that we don't understand is that people like need to look at things multiple times before they make a decision. If someone has come to your page 5, 6, or 7 times and they haven't moved forward, that should be an indication that it's time for you to jump in and have a conversation with them.
How how have you set that up in terms of like how have you set that up?
Yeah. So I use a tool called Klaviyo. So there are different email marketing systems. One that I recommend for service providers that I think works really well is ConvertKit. It's very intuitive. It's very easy to use. Like literally anybody can figure out ConvertKit, but they also have really good data. The tool that I use is Klaviyo. And the reason that I use Klaviyo is because I have an online shop because I sell templates and I sell courses and things like that. And Klaviyo integrates much better in a sense with Shopify. So I use Klaviyo. But in Klaviyo, I can set an automation or I can set a rule that says, hey, if this person has viewed this page XYZ times, send them this email. Or if this person, because Klaviyo integrates with Shopify, it tracks everything that you do on my website. It tracks everything that you do on my shop or on my actual like branded website. It tracks all of that. So setting it up on that side is very easy. But in ConvertKit, what I like to do is if I send you an email and I have a link, all of those links are tagged. So if you click a link, you get a tag added to your profile. So if you have that tag, then there's an automation that says all subscribers who have this tag, send them this email or start this automation. And so that's how I do it. Also with tools like Google Analytics and things like that, you can connect your Google Analytics to like your email marketing using Zapier. So you can say like you can track their behavior in Google Analytics and then use that as a prompt for your email marketing system. It's a little more advanced because you have to make sure that you have the conversion set up on your website through Google Analytics and the page actions and things like that. But it is possible. And if you're able to do things like that, then it just makes it so much easier to know like who's actually like a red hot lead or who's like, like mid or not, like they're kind of interested, but they're on the fence or they're circling a drain. Like you can kind of see that in the data and in what sequences they're in or what automations they're in. And then from that point, you can set up automated segmentations. So segmentation is when you say of 100 people, 20 people meet this profile because they've done A, B, C, D, and E things, right? I only want to talk to this group of people, send them an email. A lot of times when we think about segmentation, we think that like we have to set the segmentation up automatically, but you don't. If you know what your customer journey is and you know that people who have these kind of characteristics are more than likely going to purchase your product, then you could set that up automatically. You could create a segmentation for those characteristic types. And then you have automation that says when person meets this criteria, enter them into this funnel. So even when I think about like one of my clients, she really did not want to do discovery calls, but she knew that she had a higher conversion for discovery calls. The reason that she didn't want to do them is because when people would book discovery calls too early in her sales funnel, they were not yet ready to purchase. And so I said, well, if that's the case, it's not that you want to eliminate discovery calls altogether. You want to add a barrier for when you do discovery calls. So let's think about what that criteria needs to look like. And then we can build a funnel that says when they meet this criteria, then we will invite them to the discovery call. And that has worked so well for her. It's gotten her off of these pointless discovery calls with people who are just like, really, they have questions that need to be answered, but those questions could be answered via email.
Yeah, that's really, really great. That's given me some good ideas of some things that I can do in my own business as well. So thank you for that. Have you got
Okay.
any other amazing stories of how people have implemented really great? Because I know you've had some great success with helping your clients generate like huge launches and really cool things. And so do you have any stories of, I guess, someone using automation to help them with a launch or anything like that?
So one of my clients, she has 3 children, I believe. And she's a very active parent. And so she wanted to do a launch, but she could not exert the energy of like being online every single day and writing emails in real time and things like that. She didn't really have that in her. And so my recommendation to her was, okay, well, let's just build everything for your launch ahead of time, and then we will schedule it. And then on the day of your launch, we'll just hit start and it'll run. And she did, and it ran and it worked perfectly. And she hit her first 5-figure launch. And it was amazing because she got to do it in the way that felt good to her, but she didn't overexert herself. She didn't burn out. She literally was like, this is the easiest launch I've ever done. She got to repurpose a lot of those things in future launches. It was actually one of my favorite like success stories because I got to see, and she got to see, and like other clients got to see that like you don't have to be online 24/7 in order to make money during your launch. Like there are things that you can do to better prepare and plan for that launch to make it easier. And so that's like one of my favorite ones.
Oh, hello. I'm interrupting this episode super quickly to let you know that we have limited availability to work with the team at White Deer Studio. If you want done for you graphic or brand support, that means doing your graphics for you. Anything from bespoke social media templates to launch graphics or a full branding package, our team are ready to support you. Just head to whitedeer.com.au/design studio to find out more. That's the color white, the animal deer.com.au/design studio to find out more. We cannot wait to work with you. All right, back to the episode. Could you give an example of some of the automations she used? So obviously there would have been emails that were going out. What else did she kind of implement?
So she used emails and social media. So all of her social posts were scheduled. She used
Yeah.
mini chats. She
Yeah.
had comments for different posts. So if you commented, she would send you a link, or there would be like a conversation, etc. Um, there was something. So in her emails, it wasn't just that like the emails were sending. The emails were based on her customer journey. So once you got to certain points in her journey, so whether it was you looked at the sales page or you booked a discovery call or you clicked a certain link in the email or you watched a certain YouTube video, etc. At that point, you would branch off in her funnel into other mini sequences that basically spoke to like those different actions to help move you even further along the funnel. So those were like the main primary automations, I would say: email, having the social media scheduled, and leveraging mini chat, and then having those like mini funnels inside of her sequence.
That's really cool. That would involve it would involve a lot of forethought, but if you don't have to rush that forethought, I guess you can be like, I'm going to spread this out over a few months and kind of let myself do this slowly and prepare it the way in my time, my schedule, and then you can
Exactly.
press go.
Exactly. And I mean, that's only thinking about promotion, but then obviously, like upon her onboarding, right? Like you're paying, but then you're automatically getting her onboarding form. You're automatically getting access to her community. So it's not like she's sitting there and a client is paying and then she's like, oh, let me send you this contract. And then let me send you, like, no, that's all happening behind the scenes. Like her students are paying and going through her entire onboarding process and she's pretty hands off. We also set up automations on the back end to capture testimonials. So like once your end date came up in the program, then you received an email that was like, hey, your time in the program is almost coming. I'd love to know like what was your experience in this program? Would you be willing to book a case study call? And so she was able to like book those things out automatically and things like that. And so one other note that I would make is that like automations are so good for promotion, but that's not the only place that you should have automations in your business. Like you really should have them throughout that full customer journey, like from promoting to get them as a client, to onboarding them, to serving them, to offboarding them, and then turning them into affiliates or brand ambassadors or things like that. As an example, like when you purchase from me in my shop, about 30 days later, you receive email that's like, hey, I really hope that you enjoy this product. Would you be willing to share with your community? If so, you'll get 30% commission. And you can, at that point, immediately sign up as an affiliate. And so things like that allow me to move people from one bucket to another bucket without me having to be hands-on or right there or remembering like, oh, this person purchased a product 30 days ago. Let me go turn them into an affiliate. Like nobody has time for that.
No, and like even if you do, you don't remember all those things unless you've like given yourself a future task, and you're probably going to automate that task anyway. So, yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I need to be like having a pen and paper here, writing down some ideas that you that you've shared. Like I've got so many automations, but there are so many more that you're sharing that I'm like, that could be a really great way to kind of leverage that or to serve that better or to yeah, that's really cool. Okay. What do you see as some mistakes that people might make as they are implementing automations or creating them or not creating them? Like, what are some mistakes there?
So I would say the biggest one when they're implementing them is not testing the automation. Nothing grinds my gears more than like you spend 3 hours setting up this automation and then you turn it on without going through it as a customer would. So then it breaks and you're like, I'm never doing this again. When the truth is that, you know, you have to test it. Like I've been doing marketing automations for so long now, like almost a decade. And I still test every single automation that I do, and not just once. Sometimes I test them multiple times because if I test it and it doesn't do exactly what I want it to do, I have to test it again. I have to test it until it's perfect. So I would say that's like the biggest mistake. Some
Just
other
to
mistakes.
on that one,
Mhm.
I just want to share a tip that I learned recently that changed the game for testing things. I didn't realize. So for anyone else that doesn't realize this, say you're testing anything to do with automate with email, so you have to enter in your email address. I
Yeah,
don't have that many email addresses. So yes, you put in like if you seriously, this was mind blowing to me. Like say my email address is like Jacqui at whitedeer.com.au. What I can then do is do Jacqui plus test June 14 and at whitedeer.com.au. And that is a whole new email address, but it still goes to my email address, but the email system reads it differently so I can test the thing again. And it was just game changing because I was like trying to like I say I've got 5 emails over the lifetime of my life of like random
Mhm.
things that I've invented in my time. And I was like, how are people doing this? How are people testing things? And you can do that plus a little trick. I was like, this is game changer.
And then you have to go back and delete them because you don't want to receive all those emails.
I recently started ManyChat and I had to test it like 15 times to get it to do exactly what I wanted. And yeah, I'm getting so many emails right now, but I don't want to unsubscribe for myself because I'm like, oh, Jacqui, surely if I read these emails then I'll pick up something that I want to change, but I'm not reading them. So yeah, that's a good tip. Test your automations.
I would say, oh, I think another mistake is like not doing the automations at all because you don't want to dedicate the time to it. I just feel like that is not helpful to you at all. At the end of the day, you're going to spend the time. And do you really want to spend the time repeating the same task over and over and over again? Or would you prefer to spend the time, automate that task, and then free up time to do other things like pitch more opportunities or secure more clients or brainstorm or strategize or write more emails? Like the time that you are able to buy back by having the automations far exceeds the time that you will spend setting it up.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to remember that sometimes because sometimes a task is literally only taking you 5 minutes or less to actually do. And so you're like, oh, it's just 5 minutes. It's just 5 minutes. It's just 5 minutes. But if you're doing that task like 20 times, then you could have set up an automation and yeah, have that time back to be doing money making things in your business rather than just monotonous tasks that you don't need to be doing.
Exactly. And I think a lot of times people think like, oh, I need an assistant or I need to hire someone. And maybe you do, but in a lot of cases, a lot of the things that you think you need an assistant for, you could automate.
Yeah, that's so true. And then, say for me, I do have an assistant, but lots of the tasks that I give her are automated. Like, I'm like, oh, can you create this thing for this person? It's an automated task that assigns to her that I don't have to manually assign to her. And so, yeah,
Exactly.
that's so, so true. And I'm even thinking now of some things that I could probably take off her plate and give her some more money making tasks because I can automate some different tasks that she's currently doing. So it's like it's a win-win opportunity when we kind of get into it. And it can be a little bit like if you're not really into tech, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I think it's so worth doing and implementing and getting help if you need it. Because yeah, it can just be such a game changer to help you, I guess, just scale your business really sustainably rather than doing more constantly because you're growing constantly, but getting then more overwhelmed.
And one thing I'll say is like use the chat features on the tools that you have. Like if ever I can't figure anything out, I
Yeah.
will chat that company in a heartbeat. Like that is what they are there for. That support is built into the monthly or the annual fee that you pay.
Yep.
So don't waste time, hours of your life trying to figure it out on your own when there are people whose like whole job is to support you and figure it out for you.
That's such a good point. Um, it's actually really annoying though as an Australian because most companies like Zapier, for example, is American. And so when you send off a question, usually they're all in bed. And so you've got to wait to the next day to get a response. But it's fine. It's still worth it. And then
Mhm. And
sometimes
it'll
some
send back an
companies,
email. It'll send to
sorry.
them as well. If they're asleep, because I am normally sending my chats after 7:30
Yeah,
when my
that's true.
kids so it'll send them as an email and then they will email me back. And it does become this ridiculous email chain. But I just feel like
You
I can
still get your help.
yeah, and I can reply to an email in 3 minutes and move on, depending on the urgency of like the support that I need, versus sitting there for 4 hours trying to figure it out on my own like that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. That's so good. Okay, so how can we thank you for all of your like insight and wisdom in there. I think there's some really great takeaways that we can have for automating different parts of our business. If we want to keep in touch with you or stay a part of your world, how can we do that?
of course. So you can follow me on Instagram at the Brianca Johnson, and Brianca is Brianca. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads, at the Brianca Johnson. You can also visit my website, briancajohnson.com. When you visit, there will be a little pop-up for Mother Mail, which is a weekly newsletter that I send out. I share insights about running my business as a mom, a wife, and just like all the things I'm learning, how I'm changing my business to like accompany this like growing family of ours. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, that's how you can connect with me.
Amazing. And I'll pop all of those details into the show notes for anyone who wants to click onto those. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, I've got so many things I want to implement and try in my own business now. So thank you.
Of course, if you have any questions or any help, don't hesitate to reach out. No
Thank you.
problem. Thank you for having me.
So, thank you for joining us for that episode. I hope you learned as much as I did. I would love to know, please pop in the comments or comment on Spotify what you got out of that. Like, what automation are you wanting to implement in your business? I've got about 5 I want to do after that conversation. I would love to hear which ones stood out to you or ones that maybe this conversation has sparked for you to do for yourself. So, let me know, and I'll see you next week for a new episode. Bye.